Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Insider Gaming Developer Spotlight. I'm, of course, Senior Editor Mike Straw here for a special interview, one that I've been looking forward to for some time and talking more about. I'm joined by producer of NASCAR 25, Matt Lewis. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time here and joining me.
Absolutely happy to be here. Excited to get into it.
So it's been a year and a half about since the announcement of iRacing acquiring the NASCAR license. And this is a high-level question to kick things off. How's it been going overall?
It's been pretty awesome. I mean, it's game development, right? So there's peaks and valleys and pressure and getting through different milestones and different checkpoints. But overall, I like to say that literally everybody working on this game is a fan first. And so a lot of what we're doing, a lot of the strategy that we've put in place is all about this notion of building the game that in large part we've always wanted to build. So having that sort of be coming to fruition here very soon and finally getting out to the public is really exciting for us.
So since day one, this was announced, the goal for the team, and you talked about it like on a past Q&A, the developer Q&A, like has been bringing back NASCAR games to what everybody feels like fans kind of deserved. How has, in these last 18 months or so, to make sure that happens, how has the development process maybe shifted from when it first started to where things are now to make sure fans get that authentic NASCAR gaming experience that, to be honest, we haven't had in almost a decade, it feels?
Yeah. There's a lot of answers to that.
Yeah.
I think the first and foremost that just jumps out at me is just the strategy and the planning, right? You have to have a plan and you have to execute on that plan and you have to get the right people in the right seats on the bus, right? We've talked a lot, as you said in prior videos, about name your favorite NASCAR game, right? It's going to be the Papyrus games, it's going to be one of those mid 2000s EA games, or it's going to be Dirt to Daytona. It's literally everybody will say one of those three, right?
Yeah.
And so a big strategy that we had was to bring in people from all of those eras, all of those times, put them together and really create this sort of dream team experience to get all the right pieces, as you say, in the right slots to build what we've always wanted to build. I remember, as when we were working on the EA games, playing the Papyrus games at night and being like, man, if we could ever figure out like how can we get this driving model with the stuff that we're doing in career, with the stuff that Monster did really well in Dirt to Daytona, and like smash all those things together, that would be great. And we were saying that 20 years ago, literally, right? But that's what we're doing. And I think this is the first step of a long-term relationship. That's the other thing that I think is critical. If you look back at the history of NASCAR, for better or for worse, its biggest problem has been lack of consistency in the developer, right? It's bounced around. We could do a whole separate podcast on the reasons for that and the inside scoop on all of those decisions and all of those issues. But one thing that I love about iRacing is they're the industry leader. They're well funded. Everything about this opportunity was right from the get-go. And so there's no issues of, in the future, the game changing hands and kind of going off the abyss into nowhere. And, we feel it. We feel the same thing that you guys feel with that void that has been created and there being no games the last 5 or 6 years. And there's some added pressure with that, right? Because we do know we have to deliver and we do know we've got to step up our game, so to speak. But we're ready. We're ready for the challenge. And I think you guys are going to be super excited.
You've obviously, you talked about bringing people together. You've worked on NASCAR games for years and years, going back to the EA days. How does this feel different, this process from inception to now, compared to anything you've worked on in the past?
It's the assets. It's the resources that we have inside of iRacing are literally world-class, right? And it's easy to say and kind of just bullet out this stuff or list it off when I'm talking or whatever and say like, oh, we have the best physics and we have the laser scan tracks and the laser scan model. But like, when you really kind of absorb all that, and it's never been done before, right? Like we used to build tracks in a much more, I hate the word cheap, but like efficient manner, we'll call it, right? Like
Yeah.
we didn't use laser scan data. We built it largely from photos and old drawings and things like that, and having that sort of next level of authenticity and realism and all the things that, as I said, iRacing is known across the world for. That's the big difference. And I've said this a million times too, but it is already, and was months ago, the best driving NASCAR game I've ever seen on a console. I mean, that was right out the gate. First time in, those guys came in and tuned it, got everything going, and it was like, holy cow, what a game changer.
So we know that the game's going to be it's built in Unreal. Why that engine specifically, with all the options out there, just what iRacing is built on? Like, was there something that stood out for what it offers, especially for doing a console game, or kind of, if you can, peel back the curtain on that decision if possible?
Yeah. So it's a great question, and one that I think gets skipped a lot. But the reality is a racing game is always going to be its own engine, right? And so, yes,
Mm,
it's Unreal at its core if you strip everything else away. And yes, Unreal helps us do some things. It certainly helps on the graphical side of the world, and having us be able to push boundaries on the graphics. And there's a little bit of efficiency that we get from using the larger platforms like that.
yeah,
Um, Unity, as you know, is much more helpful on the other side, which is more like user interface, front end stuff. So they both have their own pros and cons, but um, the thing that I really want to get across is it's really our own engine, right? When you talk about what matters, when you talk about the gameplay and the physics and all of the things that actually, in your hand you feel through the controller, that's all custom, right? And that's not something that anybody gets just off the shelf from using Unreal, right? And if you look across sort of the breadth of all racing games, you'll find the same thing, right? Like some of them may do the same thing that we use, where we kind of use them in limited form, but
yeah.
um, that's the real answer, right? Is like our true engine and our true gameplay comes from decades of MGI doing what they do, iRacing doing what they do, and, as I said, putting all these people together and building this amazing engine.
With that, excuse me, what type of like technical hurdles come from that? Because if you're using it as a base and you are building it out to basically be its own version of of an engine, what type of technical hurdles do you deal with to make sure it actually fits into what you guys want as a game, as a product?
Um, I don't know that there's any specific hurdles that come out of that, but there's definitely you know you have to keep up on certain versions, right? And they will get to a point where they force you to say, you have to be on .x version, or
Yeah,
Sony and Microsoft say you have to be on .x version to submit, and things like that. So there's some pain points there where you were maybe hoping to not have to update the subsystems as much as you get towards launch, and then you get a surprise like, oh, by the way, you got to do this. So it's more like what I would define more as like opportunity costs, because every time you have to do that, you're taken away from something else, right? That you could be having your engineers spend more time elsewhere. But like I said, for the most part, I don't want to make it sound like it's a bad thing that we're using these platforms either, because
yeah.
they're amazing and they're
There's
incredible, and they
there's a
they help us
reason
so much.
millions, yeah, there's a reason
Yeah,
thousands of studios use them. It's
yeah,
if they weren't good, they wouldn't get used.
right, right, right.
What is the team size about now? Like how many people are actively working on NASCAR?
Oh man, that is a great question, because it has increased a lot. I would say if you're talking just every day full tilt, that's all they do, it's probably 50 ish. Um, but obviously, there's another 20 or so easily, that have projects and things that they're responsible for, that are also doing other stuff on the sim as well.
At this point, and how much involvement is NASCAR on the day to day? Do they kind of just let you do your own thing and you give them periodical or updates, or are they in almost every day on, especially at this stage of where you are?
We talk to NASCAR weekly, at least, sometimes multiple times per week, and they they are a huge help and a huge resource. Nick Rend and all of his team over there, they've grown as well. So that in the same period that we've sort of taken off and grown this huge team, his gaming team has grown within NASCAR, and they do all kinds of cool stuff on other platforms with other games and Roblox, and um, really just they're sort of chartered with getting the NASCAR brand out there in as many gaming forms as possible. And so, but yeah, we talk to them weekly, and obviously, to your point, we're constantly showing them updates and builds, and really they help a ton on the marketing side as well.
Yeah.
So you think about as you get towards launch and talking about doing some track activations, or like I'm sure people saw last week, we were out there showing drivers and going around to race teams and helping us, organize all that stuff and kind of keep the crescendo going towards launch. It's critical.
Before we get into the game itself, you mentioned the added pressure of making sure things are done right. What has that added pressure kind of, I don't want to say added stress to what you are doing, what the team is doing, but how is that kind of shaping like the mentality behind what's being built right now?
Um, I mean, yeah, we feel it. um, we know when we put out a dev diary, we know exactly what people are going to say before they say it, right? And that comes from what I said. We're fans first, and we know kind of what the drill is here. Um, I don't want to get into history necessarily, or where
Yeah, of
things were in
course.
the past, but there was a void created, right? And that void obviously has nothing to do with us. And so, um, part of the challenge for us is we needed to talk a lot, and we needed to fill that void because we know there's gamers out there that are passionate about NASCAR, passionate about what we're doing. And in a typical game development framework, you don't really show much and you don't really say much. And, you look at when NBA just did, they just announced yesterday or the day before or whatever, they're launching in about 2-ish months, and they
Yeah.
just put out their trailers and all that stuff. So like all that stuff is pretty normal. The difference for us is there's been this huge void for 5 or 6 years. And so people want content, but then on the flip side, what we know of doing this for 25 plus years is nobody gets any good of showing a game too early, right?
Exactly. I
So
mean, we've run into issues in other genres and other sports where you announce a game 3 years before it's ready, and then by the time it comes out, people are wondering, well, what were you doing for 3 years? Like it feels unique because it was the announcement of, hey, we bought the license. Like, so obviously we have to, like, with that announcement comes, hey, we're building a game. That's just kind of how it is. So it kind of
yeah,
feels like that unique situation.
yeah. And so that's what's led to all the dev diary content and all the things, is just us trying as best we can to fill the void and that passion, because we feel it, right? Like we are in the same bucket, we're fans, all those things, and we want to make sure that we're rebuilding the trust of those fans. um and we also understand that it's a lot of words right now, right? It's a lot of me sitting on these same screens and saying a lot of the same things over and over again, but that's all we can do right now, right? And
Yeah.
so in large part, we're we're trying to be open, we're trying to be honest. If there's one thing about me, my friends will tell you, I am honest oftentimes to a fault, right? That's
I feel you on that one.
for better or for worse, that's who I am, right? So I'm not going to come on here and I'm not going to say a bunch of things that just aren't true, or tell people what they want to hear. Um, but at the same time, I do think it's important to try to build that trust. Now I
Yeah.
understand we also have to earn it with what we deliver, and there will be a gameplay trailer in late August. There will, like all of those things are still on track. All of those things are still happening. And I understand that people want to wait and make their opinion based on that. So,
Yeah. So we're gonna move on to NASCAR 25 itself. There's that balance that's needed because coming from iRacing to the console game, it's gonna be a different experience. How does that how does a team balance the realism for, say, NASCAR purists, racing purists, that those coming from iRacing, while also still being fun and accessible for, the casual racing player or newcomers? And like, what's that process like to really hone that in?
yeah. Um, I think it's important that we continue to say up front, we're not trying to make iRacing on a console. That is not what we're attempting to do. And I think that's coming across to your exact point here. But um, the beauty and the magic is really in the level of adjustability of both just pure AI settings, but also in the driving model itself. And so um, it is a super fun experience, whether you've got every single assist at 100% or all of them at zero. Now, it's tough. It's challenging. Like we saw it with drivers last week. When you turn everything off, it is a very, very challenging experience. And we're going to have wheel support. We're going to have all of the typical levels of support for wheels and pedals and all that stuff as well. But um, it's a balance. And
Yeah.
uh, I think one of the things that we've done really well over the years is the level of adjustability within the game itself. The ability to adjust the AI on 10 different parameters, not just, typically in games of the past, some of those old EA games and things like that, it was like, well, do you want easy, medium, or hard? Right. And that was it. But now you've got entire pages of settings where you can really go in and fine tune all the difficulty stuff. And so if you take the time and you really go in there and you really customize your experience, you can have the best time of your life.
That was actually that leads right into the next question, AI, because most people are going to be spending time playing solo against the computer. It's
Yeah.
a different experience from the iRacing environment. You mentioned, all of these settings. How important was that to have the team make sure that AI racing offers that customizable experience, that you can make it as fun, as easy, as difficult as you want?
Yeah. It's something, like I said, that I don't think has gotten enough maybe notice in the past of how many options there are and how many individual knobs there are to go in and tweak that stuff. Um, Listen, the AI in general in this game is super super important because we see it in the data. It's 70-ish% of the game sessions that we run in our game are career mode.
Yeah.
It's not multiplayer. It's not quick race. It's not all these other things. It's literally people playing career. They want that start in your backyard in the ARCA team and move up to trucks and move up to Xfinity and move up to Cup. And that's the experience that they love. And the biggest part to pay all of that off is not just you stepping through the series, but also the competition that you're getting and the rivalries that you form and all of those pieces. And so um, it's a incredibly important detail for us to get the AI right. One of the things we're super excited about that we haven't talked a lot about is Racing Insights. And so if you don't know what Racing Insights is, they are the sort of behind the scenes feed for the TV broadcasts. And so when you hear, some announcer in a booth say something super smart about something that happened 4 years ago, it's likely coming from Racing Insights, and they're kind of pulling all that data. Um, our driver ratings will be based on real world Racing Insights data. So we're about to do another drop here soon, right before we submit. But that data will then dictate how good is Ryan Blaney at Charlotte versus how good is William Byron at Martinsville, and it's pulling from their actual results. So again, it's just one more thing about authenticity, right? Tying back to iRacing, you'll see Kyle Larson running the high line more than others will. You'll see tendencies, you'll see all of that stuff, to
Will
sort
that
of get that personality.
will that change per track? Because you mentioned like how Byron is at Martinsville. Like it will the AI version of William Byron race differently at Martinsville than he would say at Sonoma.
100%. Yep. Yep.
So drivers have played it. They like it was all over social media. They got in their hands. What was the feedback like from them, both good and maybe what they thought kind of needed to be improved?
Yeah. 98% positive. I mean, the feedback, it was crazy. I'll give you just one sort of anecdote story, which was, we had gone to Junior Motorsports. And as you guys know, Junior's been a huge part of this game. And I hope we get into that detail a little later. But we obviously have a long-term relationship with him just through iRacing and everything else that we're doing. But anyway, we had gone there. I don't know if you've ever been there, but you go up on the second floor and there's this like glass box conference room right there when you go up the steps. And so we were in there, we were setting some stuff up for Sammy Smith and getting everything ready. And like the entire office just sort of converged on this glass square conference room. And everybody's wanting to play. Everybody's wanting to get a shot. Some of the producers from Dirty Mo were getting in there. Literally everybody, their attorney like stepped in and played some laps. But then we were like, all right, we got to get to the content with Sammy. And out of nowhere, Noah Gragson comes barging up the steps from out. He was like outside doing some stuff down the road and heard we had the game over there. So he comes up, he's like banging on the glass. He's like, I heard you had the game. I want to try it. Like it wasn't even just the stuff that we were scheduled to do. There was a couple other guys at Hendrick one day that we were shooting over there that we just picked up as well. But it's this general excitement in the industry for just what we're doing and the fact that it's in good hands and that we're bringing things back to the way that they should be. To take your words from earlier, like there's just the entire industry is behind us and supporting us, and it's really cool to see.
I was going to bring up Dale Jr.'s involvement in a little bit, but we'll jump that up and we'll get to other questions in a minute since it flows so nice. It was mentioned during your one Q&A. He's helping with the music, which
Yeah.
good, fantastic. For some reason, it just sets the tone for everything. But we've also heard him about him helping with how career mode will play out, just how in general. How hands-on actually is he? Because people know he's involved, but I don't know if people know how involved he actually is in the day-to-day. And you're getting insight from a driver who comes from a generation where at the end of the day, raised on video games.
Yeah.
We're hitting that stage of game development.
Yeah, it's been mind-blowing for me. I spent 16 years at EA. I've worked on the Maddens, I've worked on the college footballs, I've worked on a lot of sports games, and a lot of times, not to throw anybody under the bus of any of those leagues or whatever, you have a relationship with a guy, they come in, they're like, what do you want me to say? Where do you want me to stand? Like nice people, whatever, but it's like they're going through the motions, right? They're excited and all that, and it's cool that they're in a video game, but it's like it's another scheduled thing that they got to do on their daily agenda, right? This experience with Junior has been the complete opposite. I mean, he's sitting on meetings longer than he should. Like we've been on meetings a couple of times where like his business manager's popping her head in and being like, we got to go. He's like, I know, 10 more minutes. But just talking us through all of the emotion and all of the, we're trying to put this focus on immersion and emotion in the game and everything being from the driver's perspective, and hearing his take on what he goes through in a race weekend, or what sort of feels he's having before each session, or how we should craft some of the messaging and things that happen to you through career mode. So there's a huge feature that I literally cannot wait to show people, and we haven't shown anything. We haven't even shown a screenshot of it, but there's him in the Dirty Mo studio doing his podcast, and he's talking about you. He's talking about the player and some big things that may be happening to you, or some challenges that you're going through, or whatever. But it's this like real sensory experience where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm
He's
halfway.
telling your story,
Yeah,
basically.
I'm halfway through my, rise from trucks to Xfinity, and Junior's on here talking about me and something that just happened. Like, and we got all of that done with him and TJ in the Dirty Mo booth. And anyway, it's been far beyond what I expected, far beyond what I would have ever thought we could get, and it's really going to pay off for fans.
So now comes the nitty gritty questions that I know you might have probably been expecting, and it's things that people wanting to know to make for that NASCAR experience. The first thing is race day itself. We saw the dev diary where they were talking about race day. How accurate, though, to what you see on race day will the game be for all the series? We're talking from stages to the choose cone to maybe tire sets, things like that.
Yep. So um, the big thing that we obviously try to focus on is what I was saying earlier about having everything from the driver's perspective. So if you look back at um, again older games, they did this weird thing where it was like it's kind of TV when you first came in, looked like Fox and NBC, and then all of a sudden they dropped the green flag, and now you're sitting in the car.
Yeah.
For us, in the pre-race sequences, even before qualifying, as you're sitting getting ready to go out to practice, like it's all driver's perspective. You're sitting in the car in the garage stall. They push you out when you go out to practice. Then you're sitting on pit road waiting for the official to wave you forward to take your lap in qualifying. Then even the pre-race stuff, like we have some flyovers and the typical stuff you would expect on race day, but it's like you can see it's like the driver's looking up at them while he's standing by his car. It's not this like pulled out kind of more TV aspect. But in terms of the rules package, everything you would expect, right? The stages all work correctly. Everything's broken down in the real world the same way it is. We don't have multiple tire sets. That's something that we've talked about for future years. And one of the things that I think is really important is to build that 3 and 5 year plan,
Yeah.
right? And as we started this project, it kind of goes back to what you were asking earlier about what's different, right? I think a lot of games struggle with building that 3 and 5 year plan, right? And what we did was take a step back and say, it's year one is really about getting the foundational elements correct. We saw what happened the last time a NASCAR game shipped when the rules aren't right and the racing is broken and the AI is broken. Like it's not a good experience. So you've got to get the core right. That's how you earn back the trust. That's how you get the fans excited. Core has to be correct, right? So that's year one. Then
Speaking
it's like,
of,
go ahead.
go on. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You're talking about year one, and it sits on me like you say. The core has to be correct. You have the 4 series,
Yeah.
Cup, Xfinity, Truck, ARCA. How was it to make sure that any hurdles to make sure each series is accurately represented? Because the racing in the Cup series is way different than the racing in ARCA. So that's not just you're not just focusing on the one now.
Yeah. I think that probably, I'm guessing, but I think that probably took fans the most by surprise.
Took me. I can
We
tell you that.
we saw it. We
We were
saw a lot of
expecting everybody
fans.
was expecting just the 3.
Yeah. Or I think maybe they were even expecting just one. I saw a lot of fans who were like, well, if they do it right, they'll strip it all back and it'll just be the Cup series and we'll start slow and build out whatever. Um, yeah, again, it's the resources that we have, right? Like the ability to, and I'm telling you, you can immediately feel the difference. If you go in and you run an ARCA car, you will absolutely feel a difference from a truck, from a Cup car, all that. And it's crazy almost how much you can kind of, my biggest thing with gaming is always like feeling the back end stepping out and how much traction do you have and all of those sort of gameplay elements. But it's pretty wild how accurate a lot of that stuff is and how you can translate it even on a controller. We've just done an incredible job with getting those feels, as I call them, correct when you're driving the cars. But yeah, it's a huge monumental undertaking, because when you really extrapolate that out, right? Like, I'm kind of plucking numbers out of thin air, but you have 30-ish tracks and you have 4 series, and you've got to tune now physics and car setups and AI difficulties and all of these different individual AI settings. Multiply all that out, right? By 4 series, by the number of tracks, by different race lengths for fuel and tire, running fuel and tire windows, all of those things. It's just it becomes this monumental undertaking to get all the tuning correct. But as I said, we wanted to do it right, and we want to get that foundation correct. And so that was a key element for us.
You talked about like the controller. One thing that I've noticed in racing games, I've been covering racing games for 15 years now. Like, there's always that feel of sometimes they play really well on on the wheel and pedals, and controller just feels like an afterthought, even for console games. How how important is it? It kind of might go without saying, to make sure if you're going to sit on your couch and play with a controller, you feel like you have just as much control.
It's
No pun
paramount.
intended.
Yeah, it's paramount. I think, again, we go back to data, right? Like, we can see all that stuff, and we can see how many people play with controller, and it is huge numbers, like 90+%, right? So yes, wheel and pedals are important, because there is a subset of users who does still do that on console, and they are a very loud and passionate group. But we also want an experience for anybody at any level to have fun and have the ability to go in and compete and play career mode and do all those same things at any difficulty that they want. So, um, again, it's something I feel like has been underrated for years, because our AI is some of the best in the business, and the way the difficulty maps out across the different levels of assists and all of those things really does create uh, a great experience for anybody.
Speaking of assists and accessibility, obviously the goal is to make sure as many people can enjoy the game. And we've seen accessibility become a major thing, rightfully so, over the last half decade, if not more, to making sure every type of player can enjoy it. What type of accessibility options will there be for players?
Yeah. So there's 3 levels of assists total. But then you can, well, there's 3 types of assists, and then there's infinite levels, because you can actually customize it and slide the slider 0 to 100 on each. Um, we have presets where you can go in and just pick the presets to kind of give a baseline of where you need to be, but highly customizable, anything from helping you brake, helping you steer, to traction control, and sort of getting off the turns and things like that. So, um, all of that getting done first. So, my suggestion to everybody is always go in, go to your favorite track, run some practice laps, get all that stuff correct first, and then go in and start changing the AI to match the type of experience you want to have. Because some people want the challenge too, right? And
Yeah.
we love that as well. Like, some people want to go into career mode and not win right out the gate and struggle and start finishing in the 30s, and then get to the 20s and the 10s, and take a longer journey, let's call it, through career mode. And the game supports that too. And we spend a lot of time making sure that all of those different levels can have as much fun with the game as they want to have.
there there's still, when people think iRacing, they think multiplayer racing. This will have multiplayer, but how will that multiplayer experience work? Will there be local multiplayer? Will there be private lobbies for leagues, spectator features? Like, what can the online experience, people who are into that, expect?
Yeah. So, um, we made the tough decision to cut local multiplayer. So that's not a thing in this game. But on the multiplayer side, it will have private lobbies. We're going to do some special events where, if you imagine, certain nights have sort of special events at a given track where there's kind of a
Yeah.
tournament structure, things like that. but all of the sort of standard things you would expect in the multiplayer system.
Will people be able to run, for people who run leagues and like esports, will they be able to go in and have a broadcast view type of thing, like a spectator view?
Not year one. Again, it's on our list, right? It's I would put that in the future features bucket where we need to get the core right for year one, and then really figure out how we expand. I know there's a lot of leagues. I know there's a lot of passion for just generally league tools, right? And
Yeah.
administrator tools and things like that. And it's something that we have on all of our whiteboards and have some designs for, but not for year one.
How, and this is maybe more of a peel back the curtain question too, because this will be a question that I know will be asked based on out of this. How do these decisions get made on, all right, we need to make sure we include this for year one, but maybe we can hold off because this is way more important than feature X? Not saying like their feelings are invalidated for the feature they want, like a group's feature that they were hoping to see, but tough decisions, like you said, have to be made. How does that decision process maybe work?
Yeah, it's purely opportunity cost, right? And so you can imagine, as I said, there's 50-ish people, we'll call it, right?
Yeah.
They all have passionate opinions. They all have things that they love. They all have things that they think aren't as important. And so a lot of it starts with literally giant whiteboards of ideas and thoughts and where should we be today? Where should we be in 3 years? And then um, sorting it out. I mean, it's exactly what you would expect, right? It's sitting in conference rooms, it's sitting on Zoom calls and really debating, hey, listen, if we did more league tools, that's going to cost X amount of time. And if we do that, we might have to drop the ARCA series. I'm not saying that's necessarily
Yeah,
equivalent.
but
I'm just
there's
saying
give or takes type of thing. Like,
that's
hey,
the
if we
mentality,
really
right?
want this has to go. And then you go, okay, well, we don't want that to go.
Yeah. And then we try as best we can, like I said, back to the strategy of let's all agree on what is the core, right?
Yeah.
What do we mean when we say that? What is our end goal for year one when we say we need to get the core correct? We have to first agree on what are all of the pieces of that core, right? And then it makes that discussion easier down the road when we are talking about sort of an A B feature scenario. We can go back and say, okay, what about our core objective? Does this fit? Does this check the box?
What custom race settings will there be for people who want to go in, play now, or quick races, or even set up their online games, like tire wear, like changing how much tire wear, 2x, 4x, that type of stuff, or
Yep.
flag consistency, things like that?
Yep. So again, all the usual suspects that you would expect. I think it's safe to say from a sort of simulation aspect, everything will be there. So the races are all percentage based. Again, there's presets on different race lengths, and everything is sort of derived off of that. Pitting is there. Pit options are there when you're in the race. Like all of the sort of foundational functional stuff is there.
Will you be able to control your car in pit road, or is it a case of does it do the what people expect on a console game
Yeah. So
automatic?
so we get that question a lot. We got it way back in the mid 2000s too. The reality there, and I know this is going to hurt people's feelings, but it takes a lot of work to do that and do that right and catch all the edge cases and catch all the,
Yeah.
I equate it to people who want to start a race and turn around and go backwards, right? Like at the end of the day, at some point, you got to be like, people are going to do what they're going to do, and we can't necessarily control that. But when you start allowing driving on pit road, they can do all kinds of bad things there. Right? They can get in the way of AI cars. They can stop an AI car from pitting correctly. They could knock an AI car completely out of pit road. And so you get into this situation where you're like, could we make you drive tomorrow down pit road and have it work? Yes, very quickly. It's all the edge cases, right?
Yeah.
And so then you get into this situation of like, man, easy to accomplish just this one thing, and it sounds super simple, right? But then if you start talking about how do we address all these edge cases and how do you deal with all the sort of fallout from letting the player make those decisions for a couple of guys who are just going to go and kind of, you know, do things the opposite from everybody else, then it becomes back to that question of how much time is this worth and what else could we be doing instead, right? I also equate it to people think they want it and they may not. So like again, EA stuff, right? People I remember people used to this is late, like I don't know, 2008, 2009, there was this big push for everyone wanted to play NHL 95 again, right? They're like bring back NHL 95. And they did. They put it in some like special edition or whatever, and then people actually played it and they're like this is not what I remember. This is not what I thought it was
Yeah.
going to be, right? Like there's downsides to driving under caution and driving on pit lane, and that is if there's a lot of cautions and there's a lot of pitting happening, it's not the most fun experience to just cruise around at 60 miles an hour for 3 laps either. So there's some gameplay balancing there. There's some obviously opportunity costs and things like that. So I never want to say something is not going to happen, but there will always be
Give and take
enormous
type of thing.
opportunity
Yeah.
costs to making that happen.
As we start to wind down, just a few more questions. Career mode, the whole thing is you work your way up from ARCA beyond. Is it a case where you will always start in ARCA, or can you choose, say, I want to skip ARCA, I want to start in trucks?
For this year, you will always start in ARCA. That is a great question. I think there's a lot of theories and a lot of opinions on what you allow and how you do that. Do you have an ability to just spend a bunch of cash right away and go straight up, or there's a bunch of ways you could do it. But I love the fact that I don't want to give away too much, but career feels more like a story mode than I think it ever has in the past. The Dale Jr. things I kind of teased
Yeah.
feed a lot into that. And a lot of his feedback that led to those features was what happens if I race through career, I get through, I win the championship, and I want to play it again? Will it feel different? Will it feel like there's some replayability factor there? And will it be as fun the second time around as it is the first? And so the answer to fix that was to add these foundational, we call them turning points, but these foundational moments where you have to make some choices and you have to do some things. And so that's a long way of saying, yes, it's more of a forced progression, but if you replay it again, it should feel very different because you'll have different opportunities and different things that come along.
I'm assuming this might have answered my next question. Is there just not one way you can play, but if you're in the career mode, it's you as a single driver. There's no like I own a team and I'm managing the type of team.
No, you are.
Oh, you are. Okay.
You're definitely. It's funny because we have this debate all the time. Like we know that that's what players want, but there aren't any of those guys in the real world anymore. Like the closest thing is probably Denny because Denny drives for one team, but then he
Yeah, and
owns
then
another one.
2311, yeah.
I mean,
Well, Kozlowski. You got Kozlowski too.
there you go. There is one
So,
left.
boom, doubling. It's just growing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, you always use the Tony Stewart example or whatever. But yeah, that's the exact feel is, again, there's some things we do that harken back to the glory days, right? There's the definite dirt to Daytona feel. You don't start on dirt, but you definitely start. If you know anything about the ARCA series and what their actual shops look like, it's very realistic. It looks like you're in like a backyard, old, maybe it was your dad's shop, maybe it was your grandfather's, whatever. You got one car, then you get to the truck series. Now you're in like a steel building that's kind of out in an industrial park, and you've got a couple more chassis and a couple more employees, and then all of those things progress. You're gonna see the things change in the backgrounds. You're gonna feel the environment's changing throughout the UI. You're gonna have to hire more people. You're gonna have to manage more work, more R&D, all those things. And as you progress, you get more and more responsibility.
So you say hire more people. Will this be a case where you can sign replace drivers for your teams, hire drivers, like whether they're AI generated drivers or real drivers, and where you see maybe AI drivers in your career change teams? I'm assuming that's not possible because of sponsorships. Like that's just my assumption with how that works. I know how sponsors can be, but will you be able to sign replace drivers as your team grows?
Not for year one. So again, that's on the horizon for sure. Um, we all know that that's a big part of it. It's a lot of those EA games had the notion of a silly season and things
Yeah,
like that moving around. You do have employees that you can hire, and you do have the notion of some VIP employees that can make things more efficient and speed things up and do things for less money. And there's a definite the key to those features really is a risk reward type system, right? And so that element of risk reward still exists. It just functions for year one a little different in how you're putting employees and hiring
yeah.
employees that are more efficient in certain areas.
So it's not a case of, say I have my team and I want to hire, Kyle Busch away. I can't. You are not going to be able to do that. And again, my mind goes to, well, sponsorships. Like
Yeah.
their sponsors are tied to that team. They're on that car. That's kind of, you got to work around sponsors for NASCAR games. It's just
Yeah.
the nature of the business. The last question I have on career mode, you brought up R&D. How detailed is R&D? How is it a case of it can be as detailed as the max you offer, or if you don't want to do much, you don't have to do any?
Yep. I don't want to give away too much because we're definitely going to do deeper dives on career mode as we get closer to launch.
Of
But
course.
um, in general, I would say there are mechanisms in place to let you get as deep or as surface level as you want, right? We certainly don't want to force somebody to go in there and, you know, R&D all their parts and worry about, timing and balancing with chassis and all that stuff. So if you want to just kind of more quickly set things up and keep moving, and you really want to focus on the racing, you can do that. But if you're the opposite and you really do want to get into the nitty gritty, we allow that as well. And so there'll be a lot more information on that soon.
We talked about custom race settings, custom car customization. The one question everybody, when I said that I was going to be sitting down with you, one, everybody was excited. They couldn't. I'm sitting there. I'm like, why wouldn't they want to sit down with me? I'm great. But paint booth, will the game offer some sort of paint booth for players, and will they be even able to maybe share their designs online? I know that's a tricky situation with uh um you know not safe for work type of stuff that we've run into issues with in other games, but will there be at least the ability to fully customize your car?
Yeah. So 100% paint kit. Again, I would say, similar to what NASCAR games have done in the past, but better, right? There's back to your question of NASCAR and partners, and we've spent a lot of time with agreements and trying to get all the partners, all the big partners of the race teams and NASCAR themselves, and include as many different brands as we can for people to be able to use in the car creators and things like that. So um, excited. We're going to do, as I would imagine, another deep dive on that as we get closer to kind of show things off.
Yeah.
A little bit TBD is my answer on how much sharing we allow and things like that. There are, exactly as you said, some guardrails that need to be put in place, and frankly, we're just not there yet to know exactly where those lines are going to be.
I
But
mean, look how long it took 2K Sports
yeah,
to be able to allow that for their basketball games. Will you be able to add a custom logo? Say if I wanted to create an Insider Gaming race car and throw our logo on there, would that be possible, even if it's just used for our solo?
you can do it. You can do it through shapes and other ways. There are people, if you haven't seen it, that will amaze you online with watching their videos and what they're able to create by just using individual shapes and piecing them all together in the right way to create literally limitless stuff. But yeah, there's reasons for all that as well that get challenging with regulating trademarks and things like that we have to be careful about.
All right, there's the question as we wind down here that I feel like you knew was coming. Everybody's going to ask. During the Q&A, the last Q&A, you said by the end of June the team would have locked down a release date. That was the plan for late September, early October. Has that been locked down, and is there anything you can give on when fans can get the game, pre-order the game, and be ready?
I wish when we were talking about doing this interview, we waited one more week because I know I said end of June. Here's what I'll say. We do have our slotting for our submission, and the uh, official launch date will be coming very soon. I will refrain from giving an exact timing on that, but I literally, it's it's around the corner, and nothing has changed. We're still in the exact same window that I said on the AMA. It's late September to early October. We're talking about a 3 week span. We just need to know exactly which date it is, and we're almost there. I promise. I get harassed every single day for saying end of June and not hitting it. So I'm sorry. I was hoping to have it by this call because, as you said, I knew it was coming, but soon. Hashtag soon.
The game was when it first revealed that iRacing had bought the license, it was announced for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PC, but it also mentioned Nintendo Switch. Is the game still planned for Switch, or was that shelved because of the hardware limitations?
I don't know exactly how that came out. I believe it was a
It was
NASCAR post,
it
I
it
think.
was right on the so it was right on the iRacing's like release graphic on iRacing's website. They listed all the platforms, including the Switch.
Yeah. I, I can't say for as far as I know, that was never even really a plan. We learned pretty quickly. The Switch, like obviously, there's NASCAR fans on the Switch, right? I'm not saying there's not, but the Switch is a very unique audience, and frankly, simulation racing games aren't on there, and there's a
Yeah.
reason that they're not on there. And so, again, it's back to opportunity cost, right? Could we do it? Probably, um, but there would be some probably third parties involved and things like that. And so you get into this math equation where it's like for the limited audience and all the things that it takes to do it. It at the end of the day, I know people hate this answer, but like you have to run a business as well,
Yeah.
and there's just some challenging decisions you got to make on some of this stuff.
The last question for this is NASCAR 25 designed to be a single game with regular updates over a couple years, or is this planned to be the start of an annualized series?
Um, I, I don't want to say definitively one way or the other yet, only because you used the word exactly annualized. Like there's a constant debate on what the right shipping window is for a NASCAR
Yeah.
game, right? There are pros and cons to both, and I've shipped a lot of them, and I'll just tell you guys because I know this question comes up a lot of like, why don't you ship in February? Um, the answer is if you back out all of the lead times that it takes to create a game, right? Like submission time with Sony and Microsoft, QA time, alpha time, all of those things. You're somewhere in the 3-ish months out where the game has to be roughly submitted for the first time, and I'm talking like the rudimentary stuff with Sony and Microsoft. Then you do another one later on, and so what I always ask people when they say, "Why don't you ship in February?" is I say, "Do race teams know in November or even October of the prior year what paint scheme they're going to run for the Daytona 500?" Right?
Yeah.
I would bet you money that there's maybe 2 cars out of 40 that would say, yes, we know what paint scheme we're going to run, right? So again, as I said earlier, that's the Cup Series, right? ARC is going to have 0. Xfinity is going to have 0. Trucks is going to have 0. So it's this like perpetual push and pull of like, could we ship a game in February? Yes. Would it be accurate at all in terms of even driver changes or like X driver is moving from Penske to Hendrick or whatever? Like a lot of that stuff would just be flat out wrong if we tried to ship it in February. But um, are there benefits? Sure, because it is the Daytona 500, it is the Super Bowl of NASCAR and all of those things. So I just say that to say there is a constant debate on where is the right window. The flip side, by the way, is by doing it in the fall, you catch the playoffs, you catch the crescendo into the playoffs. You've got an immediate crescendo into holiday, And then you've got this opportunity to have sort of a second spike when February does come around. You can
Yeah.
do some additional content. You can do bigger updates to move drivers around. You can do paint scheme updates. You can do all of those things. And so, like I said, there's pros and cons to both ways. What I would say to you is this is the start of a long-term franchise, period. How that shakes out exactly, is it going to be exactly 12 months later that we do another game? We don't know yet. We're going to see how things go. We're going to see how things flow, and there will definitely be NASCAR games for the imminent future, right? It's just, I think we've got to be smart, and we've got to build that 3 and 5 year plan that I keep talking about, to execute the right way for the fans.
And the one thing as we wrap up that I always thought about too about a fall release, you get that season's teams, you get that season. You're not game releases in February. You might not have everything set, and then as a player, you're sitting there going, "All right, they're going to release as a paid DLC to get that update." Well, now you get it without having to pay that extra money for the team. So that's there. Like you said, there's pros and cons. There's
That's right.
benefits and negatives to whatever. Matt, I want to thank you so much. This ran a lot longer than anticipated, but there was a lot of great. I really appreciate you taking the time and joining me. Where can people get the latest information for NASCAR 25?
On the website, NASCAR25game.com. We're also very active on social. But yeah, go to the website. And like I said, hopefully, very important information coming soon. I know it's not as soon as everybody wants, but it's right around the corner.